Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November Parish Council meeting. There's no public session.
No, I just handed out the information from Anne because Anne Dawson can't be here, and she asked if that could be passed out. There's various things in there that relate to different parts of the meeting that you can consider or not consider. We'll come to them. Yeah, apologies from Anne and Helen.
Minutes of the Parish Council meeting dated the 15th of the 10th, 2014.
There were two things that Anne said. It obviously says in here that about Chris Wall using the word jail, and she wants to use the word disqualified. And she also apparently said at the meeting, and I've not minuted, that Emily did such a good job with the last edition of Grapevine. So I don't know whether people want to change both of those.
Not the first one. We had a discussion last meeting about open and transparency. I think to change that would actually change being open and transparent. It's why you got disqualified. I think that's very common.
Everyone feel the same?
So it's not allowed, you have to be working, you know, that's what it is. That's the most point
No. Well, is everyone happy that the minutes we signed up there with?
I had the point about Emily doing a good job.
We have it, Emily's done a
Yeah.
fantastic job, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll do that subject to, and I'll change that. You said?
Does anyone have a declaration of interest on any criminal or non-pecuniary on any matters arising on this agenda? Right, okay. Matters arising then. Parish Council vacancy.
Yeah, just to record that we all know it happened, but by being elected to the Parish Council.
First responders training to the village hall.
Yeah, you were going to confirm the £50 payment because that had to be confirmed this time. In the meantime, apparently, Mrs. Perkis has offered £50 to the responders as well, so that's good news.
Yep. Yep. So we're still okay with the £50?
The date has been changed. It's no longer the 1st and 2nd of November. It's now the 29th and 30th, I think, of November. It's that last weekend.
Yeah.
Is that the...
It was, you're right.
Yeah.
I'll have to try from the list. But happening that weekend and the chairman of the council now, I'm not don't know what to think that.
Could I just check, excuse me, quick, does that £50 be paid to the village hall?
Yes.
Presumably.
Didn't you pay me? My wife was offered. She's off today, so do we really need to spend that now?
Well, I think it won't go missed. The responders will still, I'm sure, be able to use £50.
Yeah, I agree.
Whether you know the extra £50 on top.
They're looking at buying sat knives at the moment.
They must have need for funds.
So I'll carry on with the £50 to the village hall.
The Child Protection Officer, public meeting.
Yeah, as I think you all know, I sent on the email, the guy apologised profusely, totally forgot about it, and he's offered to reschedule it.
Do we think there's a need for that?
Well, I would question that, having been here on the night and it's a very, very poor public response.
Wasn't there just five? Wasn't there just five?
Take away 7 parish councillors and a policeman coming out here.
I wouldn't think it was.
You don't? So, well, I would like to have seen more of a response.
Mr. Chairman, can I just say that I understand what you say, but I think that maybe if we're going to come and speak to us then, just for a short while, because I do think it's important that we do, that it be seen that we take note of the seriousness of the position.
Yes.
And so maybe a compromise would be if you came and talked to us for 20 minutes, 15 minutes before a parish council meeting.
Well, I would question what position you're talking about. Seriously, what position? Seriousness. We are in a position, aren't we?
Well, I think that the parish council had a convicted of a very serious offence, and I think it is something we should just make sure we're clear about.
We've tried that, Mr. Chairman, we tried that by having something, and it showed the public interest was certainly not interested.
It was well advertised, it was a lovely day, there was no problem with the weather stopping people turning up.
It seemed a long way to be coming just for a quarter of an hour, say, if we had to come all the way from Hull.
I think is that children are the most important things.
They are
of
indeed.
all.
They are indeed. I'm not saying that.
No, it
But,
was just.
It could certainly be educational for us all, really, you know, so
Well,
that's the idea. The more we're educated, the more we can do something about it.
another alternative is the East Riding Safeguarding Board offer free online courses that you can sign up for and do, and they're an-hour online courses. So and those could be done, could we publicise those and do those?
I'm not sure what we as parish council could do with the knowledge. Some of us are grandparents, grandparents, that we don't live near or close by our kids and grandkids. I think it's a great idea to get him in, but I just don't want to waste the fellow's time coming down here and finding just parish councillors.
It wasn't really just the children, was it? It was for all aspects. It was people with difficulties and all that sort of thing. The elderly, it wasn't just child protection. Yeah, but nobody turned up.
That was
There is, which you come to in correspondence, I think, did I put it on the agenda? I have got information for free training for safeguarding adults who are vulnerable. Yeah, I put it on there, and I've got a leaflet for that. So if you wish that, particularly for adults, and I was going to suggest that might be passed, say, to the Thursday Club as an example.
So, are we in favour then of asking the gentleman to come back down? Or to come down?
To what, an open meeting or to address us as councillors?
No, I think it would be better being an open meeting.
So asking to stand and make a public meeting.
As it should have been. Well,
Or have another public meeting. An open meeting for anyone
Yes.
to come.
I think we do need to have him come and speak to us, and if there's members of the public that are in the gallery, then I don't think that needs to happen.
so are we suggesting then that we should have it before a council meeting and publicise it to the point where members of the public can attend, just to listen to this guy, and if they wish to disappear.
That's it.
It says,
So it says on top for it.
okay. Those in favour of that, please?
7, sorry. So against, it must be 4. 3 and 1 abstention. What meeting would you like that before?
Well, I think it might be a push condition for next month.
So asking for
We could
7
actually-
o'clock on the January meeting.
Yeah, but we could ask him,
Well,
December, get out of the way.
Yeah, the other thing, December, which I'm not sure if I put it on there, we've been asked if the dog man can come before the next meeting, which I'll come to later. And that was, the thought was to tie that in with Budworth and Ellerton and all the other parish councils, so people got the opportunity to come to see it, but I'll be guided obviously by yourself.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we're right to around, say, when our weed is there, and he suggests to
You can
be.
pick one.
Yeah, good
That
call.
sounds good.
Okay. Right, Parish Council website.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything from the bloke. He should have had time to finish off his upgrade, so I need to get in touch with him, so I will do so. We're still waiting for him to do what he needs to do.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment on that? Sorry, but I actually Googled the technology called Newell Parish Council, and what you get is a bit confusing. It doesn't sort of present Parish Council. I know we haven't got it up, but there's, so if you Google it, you get, I think, 4 things come up. One's a document, one's a website or some kind of thing going back to 2005. It's got a list of the old parish councils on, from like 2004, 2005. And another one is I'll tell you what the one is now. So I didn't know whether, I mean, HOSMPC19Nov14 Parish Council, if we can get it so that when you Google that, it comes up and it is our website and not these other things. I think it does put people off. It certainly put me off. I didn't like to see that when I Googled it, and this confusing stuff came up. So is there anything to do about that?
There's limited amounts you can do unless you buy every domain name that might conceivably be, but Google will bring up every site that is a parish council.
Well, you know the one that's got just the document on?
Yeah.
It's a document that Steve's written. Could you have a look at them and just see? Because I think some of them could be taken up quite easily.
Yeah, that's fine, I'll have a look.
You do it, Steve, when you get a moment, and just see what comes up. There's a document that you've written and it's on there. And it's about getting more landfill. So I don't know what it's doing on there.
Well, it's all, everything that goes out is public information, so anybody can get hold of what the parish council writes and use it as they will. There's nothing we can do to stop that. You don't want to stop people having access to
Just
information.
have a look at it, because I think it's just a thing that could
I think the other website's one that our former chairman started, wasn't it? There was nothing to actually do with the parish council itself.
But it's there back to 2004 and 2005. I just think, just have a look at it.
When Bethany is told she can go with it by the East Riding, then that would solve that problem, that the first hit that comes up would be the formal parish council website.
And we can strengthen it by asking the school to link to the formal one and the village hall to link and so on. You know, the more links you have to the formal one, the better it is on the Google rankings.
Thank you. Wind turbine.
We're still no further forward than anything. Obviously the individual farm turbines are going forward. I've written again to Gallimore asking when they plan to put theirs up, and hopefully I'll get a response soon. The adoption of the roads, I spoke to Victoria today. She can't give us anything definite about Moor End, but it's looking good in that the officer concerned has recommended to his boss that the East Riding adopt Moor End access roads, but it's now out of his hands and it will go up the chain. The other two, Snowdrop and the Rowans, everything is in place. It's now waiting for Yorkshire Water to tick their box, and I'm told that the guy from the East Riding is pushing them. So fingers crossed, there might be a resolution at some point soon.
The new turbines that have been going now, has anybody else noticed it? The one on the airfield, the one at Hassan, the one at Wolsey, and the one at...
So it's got going.
They're going round anyway. They were going round Sunday,
No.
they're going round now. There is no watch this space on that. Make a note of that day.
Yeah, Helen's keeping an eye on that. Obviously she's not here this evening, but they not obligated to make any community fund payment until a year after the start of the electricity production sort of thing.
That sounds very important.
I've got an email from Mrs. Bocklesby a couple of days ago, just a brief message to let you know I'm now fully recovered and available for a meeting with the bail committee to discuss the right of way and the sign making access difficult on the route I've used since we purchased the house in 1997 and the route that has been used by the previous owners. May I suggest we meet at my home, as the nights are certainly drawing in. I'm not available evenings this week or Mondays, however I am free at the weekend and will do my best over the next few weeks to fit in with the committee. So if you want to give me a date that would be sensible and a time that would be sensible, I'll arrange to meet Mrs. Bocklesby at the burial committee office. Shall I suggest a date?
We really want to go, not around and bury it. We want to go in daylight, you need to see what's going on.
Well, first thing that came to my mind was this access that I've been using. Well, the fence has been up for years. You can't have used it for the past few years.
And that can be talked about.
Sure. Right. Date to me, burial committee.
If you want to just do it at the weekend, if people can spare an hour at a weekend, then as Tim says, you need the light. Otherwise, you're talking about 3 o'clock, really, aren't you? Sensibly.
Oh, can we all make weekends? An hour Saturday morning? We might do out at all.
6th of December.
6th of December.
It's a day.
Sorry?
It's a day.
10 days now?
I couldn't make it on the 6th.
Right.
I think it's important if I made the Ernest is there because you've got more history than anybody else on the
Knowledge.
committee.
Then
Was Sunday the 7th?
I'm okay, I think that weekend.
No. No. Sunday afternoon, lunchtime. Is Sunday no good at all?
Sunday afternoon, anytime after 12 o'clock.
Right. Sunday the 7th? I forget now who's on the bail committee. You're happy with that? Margaret's happy with that? So shall I write and see whether she's available on Sunday the 7th of December at 2 p.m? And I'll obviously email the relevant people once, thank you.
And that's at a graveyard.
That will be up in the cemetery, yeah. I really haven't had time to do that, I'm afraid. There's so many other...
How many issues then?
Basically, I sent out a draft lease agreement that we've not spoken, I see Alan Williamson is here, we've not spoken to Alan about yet, but it needs to be clear here before we can go forward and talk to Alan.
Does everyone have a chance to read it? I'm happy.
I'm just concerned about the very limited numbers. Reading this, it's just the chairman, vice chairman and Peter too.
There's an emergency, well, on the emergency committee, I don't mind being on there, and
It's-
I'm the closest as well.
It's a security thing. And if you have need to go, then I think if you ask, it could be arranged. But to keep security as tight as possible, the fewer people that have knowledge, that's likely to budget.
Is it relies on somebody from the emergency committee like myself, or who's not actually on there, myself or Anne?
As is Helen, of course.
I would like to discuss it in the future, but at the moment I'd like to leave that just as it is.
There would actually be 5 people, because the employees of the parish council and myself, Peter Wiles and Steve Deere. By the way.
Just seems strange that parish councillors won't have access to a parish council. Well,
problem with it.
I can see it. I think for a start, we have to obviously let this most probably run, see how it works. Most probably keep it in few hands if then a problem arises, then it could be something that can be looked at. But I think the 5 members of the council, that's a fair percentage.
Is it up and going at the moment then?
Yeah.
It is? Any problem with it?
No. All people down there.
I think it's a bit review if there's any bad weather and if it becomes an issue.
Yes, yeah. Well, Tim suggested that we keep, this winter we keep the garage on just to see how things work out. And I've not a problem with that. There's the bulk of the stuff actually to move from the garage, but Peter's, at the moment, we're pushing to get plants out, the winter plant thing, so a little bit tied up, and then there's the Christmas trees and everything on next week. So his time is a little bit tight at the moment, but we will keep it on.
Well, that's the case in point, we can't help them.
Well, you can. Yeah, no, anyone can come and help, big plants, or whatever, or help move stuff.
When?
Well, we haven't set a date yet, and it's because of the fact that we need to get the Christmas trees next week and get them up. So we're going to be tied up, unless somebody likes whittling just Christmas trees, looks down with it. And we'll about chat night.
If you want to let me know when, I can send a global email out and say that people want to meet to help meet at.
Okay. And I will
You
do
keep
that.
me informed. Are people happy with the proposed agreement?
Yeah,
Other than
we're all reasonably happy with it. Yes.
yes, I'll talk about that at some point.
Right, moving on then. Grapevine.
Grapevine, yeah, Pete and I went to see the people at Langlands since the last meeting. They've agreed to sponsor the Grapevine for a year, which is very good financial news. Just for information, that this is a mock-up of a couple of pages of the next one. So the front page would have a banner, which we always do, saying who the sponsor is, and the inside front page would be their Christmas advert. And probably towards the end, they've agreed to do, as part of the sponsorship, a regular feature every edition on gardening tips, which we thought would be good for the village. So that's to do in the garden in December, and it's talking about that. And then obviously they'll do the next one in February, and on we go there. So that was good news. The deadline is the end of November, because we're now delivering this next one on the Sunday, the 7th of December. So if anybody has anything, please, Emily's here, get to Emily as soon as possible, so Emily can get it put together. The new copier's in place. I've checked and I've printed one of these off. It actually comes out of the machine like that. The previous one, it came out of the machine and dropped on the floor, and it was sort of rough folded, but they'll now come out flat, but with a crease and with the staples. So as they come off, I'll just pick them up and do that and put them in the box type of thing, just for your information. So that was that. Pete and I have done some work on the costings, because if you remember, the cost of the new machine is, the lease is very similar, but the copy cost for colour is 2.5 pence as opposed to 5 pence with the previous one, and the black and white copy is 1/4 penny instead of 1/2 penny. So basically half price copying. And so we've done some work. The previous Grapevine, to print 1,300 copies costed £250 purely for the copying. The new one, under the new agreement, would cost 119, so that's £130 saving. We then talked about what we might do with the newsletter. Now we've got more sponsors. We want to try and give the sponsors colour when they advertise with us, which they sort of pay for. If we went to an extra page colour, so instead of 4 pages, we had 6 pages. So we'd have the front, the back, the inside back, the inside front, and maybe page 3 and page 34. That would give us more option, or give Emily more option for colour, and that would mean that that would cost £148, which is still £100 cheaper, and that would be saving £600 a year, and it would give us more option to sell sponsorship, because if you've got, they obviously would like colour. So we came up with that as a recommendation, if that fits with everybody.
I think the saving is fantastic. Everything would break even or better. Should be next year.
Should be more achievable. Yeah. Are people happy with that extra colour page?
We'd be happy if it's a case of road, that it would be a good thing. Yeah, fine.
Thank you.
Crime prevention. Door locks.
Yeah, I sent out the email and for a grant application that was slapped together for a conversation with the police commissioner. They've offered us £3,000, which was a very pleasant surprise. It's really a case of how we do it. Ian has costed out door chain and locks at a couple of £3, was it? Wasn't a lot. Yeah. We're also, on top of that, we're talking to the East Riding about Meadowfields, as we've spoken about previously. Still waiting for a site visit to look at maybe replacing doors and so on to make them more energy efficient. So that really kind of is part of it. But the grant I put in for 300, I based it on £15. At 3,000, I based it on £15 a door lock. That was to buy it and to fit it. Well, at that price, that would obviously give us 200. I want to use a few in Buckwith and Ellerton and Wrestle and Follerthorpe, because that was the idea of the grant. It was a cluster application, and they liked that. So I'm sure that's one of the reasons they gave the money. But they won't want many, and it's how we decide who is offered one. Vulnerable could mean old, it could mean people living on their own, it could mean people with a young baby, it could mean all sorts of things, couldn't it? So I don't know how you want me to progress on that.
How many have we got then?
Well, there's no set number and no set price really, because we talked to Peter Wiles since, and he reckons he can fit them time-wise for about a £5, did he say? So if we allowed £10, then that's obviously 300, and say you use 50, no more than that elsewhere, you've got an option of 250 in Holmes-Mortimer for residents as the parish council supporting them for their security.
So I think we need a good prominent article in the next edition of Great Plan, just to see what response we can get. I've mentioned it to 2 or 3 groups in the coffee shop since we laid that we've got there. Asking them to ask around if anyone felt they were in the board competition. So we do need to get the word around.
I was at a presentation by Northern Gas Networks last week, and they were talking about vulnerable people and their definition of, because they're entitled to more support with getting gas back on again if it goes off, a vulnerable person. But they're also talking about wanting to try and get a list of as many people who aren't on grid as possible, who might want gas, and to see whether there was anything they could do to help. And I just wondered if there's possibly going to be grants available to parish councils to do a sort of fact-finding type mission to see who is vulnerable. And I wondered if you could sort of tie the two together. Because although some people in the village might not be on the gas, if the village itself is on gas, then they can possibly do it quite cheaply. But people aren't aware of that. They think that they're going to have to pay thousands.
Yeah.
This grant's open for vulnerable people.
If you'd like to let me have some information, I can add it to the article that
Yeah.
Pete's just mentioned about. I wondered whether the Thursday Club might be another route.
I think we mentioned tomorrow.
And if there's any other groups in the village, I don't know about WI, I'm not insulting them when I say it, but
All in the village.
well, I know one or two people that are in it and they're old, so.
Right.
I'll put something in Grapevine, but please, if you've got any contact or knowledge of anybody, let me have them, because it's a grant that we've got that we ought to use. Really.
I'm a big three definite, you know, big people interested. So I can really contact them and set particulars. Right then, Christmas plans.
Again, if I may, there's information from Anne about Christmas. She wants to put tables up at 1:30 on the Friday. Lincoln needs to be asked if he could close his car park late Thursday. I don't know if somebody would take responsibility for that.
Can do that.
Yeah. Santa's going to walk from the school. Lou tells me that the choir is going to follow. I printed off sufficient in front of Louise there copies of the poster for the school so the kids can take them home. And I've got some colour copies that I'll put around the village. So that can be done. Mr. Byers, Anne asks, where do we want him? In the village hall car park on the street opposite the village hall. Might be sensible in the village hall car park, and it's safe. Yeah, okay.
That's a big thing.
Yeah. I'll talk to her about that. The sleigh that Anne mentions, that came from Bubworth last year. I'm fairly confident that the two guys that built it for Bubworth are building another, and if they are, then one of them is happy to bring it through. But I won't know for a while on that one. It depends how they get on at the other end. That was a note to Bethany about that. The barriers, I've sent out information, I think I probably copied you all on it, on what I think the barriers needs are. Nobody's come back to me saying that there's any others needed. So I've sent that information to the East Riding, and they're going to be picked up on the Friday afternoon and taken back on the Saturday morning. So that takes care of all of the barriers. I've filled out the relevant form for the East Riding and put myself down as the kind of the organiser because I wanted a contact. The road closure is for 4 hours and the light switch on is for just 15 minutes-ish, so I don't know whether the parish council are responsible beyond the light switch on, because the fun fair I don't think is the parish council's responsibility, it's on the blacksmiths. I don't think the craft fair is, because that's in the village hall, so I really don't think that the parish council are kind of responsible for anything except for that light switch on. We probably need a couple of 3 people with yellow jackets to just as a double protection while the lights are being switched on. Somebody at High Street East, High Street West and the old road access, just to stop anybody that does come through that shouldn't be coming through anyway. So perhaps people could come in yellow jackets and we'll sort that out on the evening. First aiders, is that covered off? Have we got first aiders on site?
I'm first there.
Right, that's good.
And I think we'll find most of the fire alarm which will be.
Right, that's good. Pete Wiles is definitely there. He's going to free up the whole day so he can be in attendance to help Bethany use him, or he's using him if he's needed. Haven't heard back from Steve yet. And hopefully Steve will be able to pick up litter afterwards and bring the village back again. And that's about it, Mr. Chairman, from me on that. If there's anything else.
Well, I'll just add a bit to that. Last Saturday after surgery, we went to check the lamps and the power. and found that there wasn't enough power. There was 24 volts coming out where the tree stands. Luckily, which one of them was it? Barry. Yes, was at home, and he came out and checked it all, and that's how we found out that things were in a very dodgy state. He has repaired it all. We haven't got the bill yet, but he's repaired it, went out this afternoon with Peter, checked it, the lights were. So I'm really confident that they switch on. People get the train. Right, local grant fund. We'll move on.
One disappointment was the grant that we put in for the soccer club to bring the bottom of the field into use was turned down by a Wards Hall, which was a bit of a blow, really. I've heard, Bethany, particularly the stacking trolley doesn't count in terms of the local grant fund. I've only just got the estimate from Kev for the other, so we'll talk about that. And then we're waiting for the 2 applications for Wren, and the decision date has been put back to second week of December, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'll hopefully be able to report that at the next meeting. Shall I go to talk? Sorry, shall I talk about community sums at that point?
Yes, you've got time to read more.
I was looking at other grants, and I contacted the East Riding and had contact with the Community Sums officer. This is community sums of money that developers put in when they do a large development, and the idea is that they, instead of building on their development leisure for people that live there, they add money to the pot for the village to improve the leisure so that their new residents don't overpower the village. And I got a note back from the Community Sums officer saying there's a large amount of community sums available, but we can't apply for it until February because they're rejigging the way it's all done and the forms and so on. So I contacted her and eventually got information from her. We've got £75,000 worth of commuted sums, and this has come from the development on Sands Lane, the affordable housing development. That's only just come through, I'm told, to the East Riding, and we're not allowed to access that until February. There's also been another agreement for community sums for the development that's been approved for Peter Ward Homes, and that totals 58,000. So there's some money coming, and this money is for part children, part youth, part adult, and basically it's all based around improving the leisure options. I spoke to the Community Sums officer today and I said, look, 75,000 is a lot of money to leave sitting around, and there's this problem with the soccer pitch that they need to bring that into play, otherwise they're not going to be able to go forward with all the kids' teams. And so she's meeting Peter and myself on Tuesday to discuss that, and hopefully, touch wood, there might be some money coming. They only want, I think it's £6,000 plus VAT or something, 6,500. So we go, subject to your approval, obviously we're going to talk to them about that to see whether we can get that freed up as like an emergency thing for the soccer club.
The village hall, playground.
Again, I put out a proposed.
Everyone read the proposed draft agreement? And do we have any problems with it?
I had a telephone call from a lady, I didn't give her name, but she said she'd been in the play corner with her grandchildren, and there's 5 big boulders in the middle. And she said that those ought to be removed because she said my grandchildren trip against them and bang their head on. Very dangerous. And I said that they've been there for ever since that was play corner being developed, and I couldn't see that. They've been more problem later than what they've been all these years. And anybody could trip over anything, bump their head against the railings or against the post or whatever.
Definitely.
I had a phone call from the council's health and safety executive on this issue, because she obviously rang the council to complain as well. And he suggested that we get them checked out by ROSPA, and I pointed out that those rocks have been there since I've been taking my son, and it has been checked by ROSPA, or equivalent to ROSPA, every year without fail, and they have never mentioned it. He therefore said there was no issue, they had no concerns, given ROSPA had seen them and not raised any concerns, therefore no problem.
Yeah.
Sort of related. Obviously we all got something through about the backfield, and that gave certain criteria that play bag would have to meet. Are we totally sure that the play corner fits those as well, or is that something that doesn't relate to play corner? Because I think there was 15 metres between the boundary of a private home, etc., and public footpath and being in the open. I think there were several things on there, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Are we sure that the play corner actually abides by all those rules before we actually take that on, or do we need to move the play corner somewhere else, or do we need to try and get it to comply to those rules?
The play corner's been there, I don't know,
Yeah.
but Dennis would tell you
We're
further.
not talking about what we play corner.
No, what I'm saying is that does that play corner meet those same rules? If it doesn't meet those criteria, do we need to do anything to improve that?
We got money from those people on where it is, so I assume it must have met the rules when we had the money, and they've changed the rules since.
Yeah.
I
So
assume.
now do we now have to comply with those, or it's just something I thought financially it's something that we'd have to invest in later on down the line to try and comply.
Well, I think we'll ask the question.
The play corner was there before some of those houses.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it'll apply really.
I mean, there's a play corner there. I mean, this has been it was refurbished, and there's been a play corner since there used to be. Of course, there used to be a skate.
Just sort of finds in breaking some rules somewhere along the line. Yeah, it's no longer compatible, no longer there.
Well, that's the question here. Just to make sure. Yeah.
Historically, it's been over 50 years.
Yeah, but these rules are here for a reason, haven't you? You've got to comply with those rules.
If nothing is untoward with that there, then are we all happy with the agreement that we will enter into?
Just ask a question. It says number 3, the ownership of land remains current ownership. Just remind me who is the current owner of the land.
The trustees of the village hall.
It is the village hall.
It's the trustees of the village.
Trustees of the
Yeah,
village hall.
it's that trust. Yeah.
Doggy bags.
Yeah, I was asked at last meeting to order doggy bags and to ask people to move the dog bag dispenser from Back Lane to the village hall, and Pete said that's the most used doggy bag dispenser of all of them, and I think Steve Deere was at the back, and he said last time that it wasn't used, and that's because Pete was filling it. So I had a chat with Pete, and as there were only £79, it was decided that we buy another one for the village hall, because all of the 6 are really well used, and it was very important for the field to have access to dog bags.
Chairman, I've had somebody complain while we're on this, I've got to read the correspondence, but all about the snippy just down the other side of it. A lot of dog mess down there. Woman pushing pushchairs, so she's got a pushchair all tangled in the dog mess. I'm wondering if there could be a doggy bag dispenser put down the snippy here.
It isn't really the family bags, it's actually having the bin to realize. My dad gets pretty frequently with pages and things like that.
Well, I know other things would that be the councillors?
It's because you can do a circuit without actually seeing the bin. Because the bin is just a bit further in the rear, and it's not near, people come across the fields. This is a public right of way, amongst the same lane things, and people can do it without actually.
Have you any suggestions as to where the bin could be located? Does it need to be at the front, or?
Well, that's, I don't know if the chapel would have checked on the bin.
Have you noticed that it's got worse this last couple of months? Because I've gone down there regularly, looking down the ages, and I thought it got worse this last couple of months, so it's
This is what this lady was complaining about.
Yeah. Well, if it's going to, if you know, if it's going to satisfy the people who are walking down there, well, we won't have any complaints of putting something there to stop this here.
You have put doggy bag dispensers, as Anthony says, next to litter bins. Isn't there a litter bin somewhere?
Yeah, it's just a further appearance.
Yeah.
Everybody has up, but it's the fact that
Yeah.
people walk round and don't actually get to that thing.
There is money in the budget, and you can put money into next year's precept to buy another litter bin to put wherever you like, or 2 litter bins. That's entirely up to yourselves. And obviously the doggy bag could go adjacent to it. If you had a site, Anthony might be best known for that.
Could that not be just recycled with this top of this?
If people think that's right, then we can have that one moved. It would cost, I can't remember, I think it was £50 to £100 for them to move it, but we could ask them to move it. Or we could move it ourselves.
Is there any trading wall around?
It's a big one, isn't there?
I'm not sure. I'll need to check on that. If it's East Riding, we need to get permission.
East Riding used to come and empty it.
Oh, yeah, it's not the
Yeah,
emptying,
yeah.
no, it's the sighting.
Yeah.
Can we check on the ownership of
Yeah.
that one then? And then,
And it's about 100 yards that way, isn't it? On the, yeah.
Roger, how does everyone feel about us purchasing a new one? If that is East Riding. And moving it.
I don't think, I think, we could do with more bins, doggy bins, if I'm honest.
I think the doggy bags approach sense.
Yeah, I think they have.
It's just we need more places for people to put their own stuff.
So chicken in his bottom.
Yeah.
And I still think people think you can only put doggy poo in a proper doggy poo bin. So maybe that's something that ought to just go in the grapevine again, and it
Do
can
it
go in
before,
any
but I will do
bin,
it
really.
again. Yeah.
I kind of propose then that rather than waiting for East Riding to come back to us, that we buy one ourselves and site it at the entrance to the snicket and see if we can cut down the problem.
And the dispenser, we've got another dispenser.
Yeah.
I'll set that.
Yeah. All those in favour?
Is that everybody, yes? Yeah. So litter bin and dispenser, and that will be placed.
I think we need to have a look, just take that
Yes,
away.
yeah.
but as close to this entrance to the snicket
There's
as
a
possible.
lamppost at the end, isn't there? There's a gap between the
Yeah, there
lamppost
is.
and the
Yeah,
wall.
yeah, there is.
So that would be the central place at that end of the snicket, not that end of the snicket. Yeah. Okay.
And the breaks in,
Yeah.
saying that it can be put in any litter bin.
Yeah, got that. Thank you.
The real housing problem.
Well, we've covered that, haven't we?
Yes.
That was earlier.
Proposed twinning.
Vineyards, Lichby.
Oh,
I've had a lot of contact with this lady, Leslie. She's emailing me quite a bit. She's English, I think. She is English. And they're obviously remarkably keen to twin. I had an email just last week, I think it was, saying, any news? We're really keen to move forward. She knows the area because she used to live around here or something. I can't remember exactly. I haven't got it. But, yeah. There's nothing to stop you doing it should you want to do it. It's just, I guess, a few people need to get together and form a twinning group.
Does anyone have any feelings one way or the other about this twinning?
So that's Mike down for that.
I'll go on that.
I don't for 1 minute suppose we're going to get an influx of, French visitors, but it can't harm the name of Almost Bolingbroke being further out there in the world. Just can't do any harm.
I would just ask, is it compatible size with this?
That would be my question there. It's very small.
It's a very small village, but they're talking about the commune, and the commune is about 2,000, just over 2,000.
Canton.
Canton, so.
Beignet is the centre of the canton of a further 15 villages with number over 2,000.
So the canton is
And they've got a lot of stuff in the village
a
actually.
remarkable amount for such a small place.
Should we ask, put an article about it in the grapevine? See what anybody thinks. I think it's an interesting topic. The question is, could we make it sustainable? If we started to do it, would it peter out after a year or two? So I think we just need to make sure that there are people interested to keep it going. Take it on.
But what, sorry, I was saying, but what would we lose by not doing it?
I would imagine nothing.
Well, that's what I mean, it would mean nothing if we did it and it didn't work, would it?
But if we trimmed with somewhere in Holland, we'd get free bulbs maybe.
If we tried to get people.
It's not about doing something detail, so it must have done
With the bulbs being low energy now.
it. Enough, before we go any further.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman.
So we'll put an article in grapevine, see if there's any response, and then we want volunteers to go and check the place out. 15 years ago, I got to live in France. but
What was speak French?
Is it worth talking to the school as well? Because they do learn French at the school, so they might be quite keen on it
Yes,
as an idea.
very good idea.
There's the girl in the coffee shop. She speaks French, doesn't she?
She's the lady that does the wine business. And she advertised in the grapevine the time before.
She might be just talking because she
No, it's not particularly different.
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll move on to the In Need Medication Charity.
Letter from Sheila Smith, Clark, to the trustees. Dear Parish Council, a vacancy for the Parish Council nominated trustee for the above charity has occurred following the death of Dewey Engel. Trustees would be delighted to receive a nomination from the Parish Council to fill this vacancy. The person nominated may be, but need not necessarily be, a Parish Councillor. The appointment is for a period of 4 years, and the trustees meet approximately 3 times a year, but may meet more often if circumstances require it. I look forward to receiving your nomination. We'll contact that person to supply them with the necessary information. And if I could, Anne Dawson has said Helen is okay with her name being put forward, but if not, they can appoint someone from the village. Neil Eindos mentioned it, so that's up to yourselves too.
Yeah, I would like to propose that we ask Helen to be a member of our trustees.
I can go. Seconded. All those in favour of Helen being put forward?
Let's go to everybody. Yeah. Okay. There's a couple of other things. One of which I mentioned earlier. This doggy man. If you remember, some while ago, I gave you some information about dog fouling training for parish councillors. So parish councillors can sort of keep an eye on things in the village. Bethany got involved with dog poo, didn't you, when you went on this course? And I think it's a similar thing to that, isn't it, that he would
It
bring?
would be that same thing.
He said he would need about 30 minutes. And a thought I had, because again Budworth had talked about it, was to invite him for half an hour, say at 6:45 on a meeting night here, and similarly in Budworth, and then tell the other people I work for, Russell and Follow Nelson, and then everybody's got the opportunity of trying to catch one. But I would hate to invite him and no one turn up, because that would be a little bit embarrassing. So,
Richard Brooks expressed an interest in doing that.
right.
Is it possible for him to
He could
put
do
it
this.
off with enough?
Yeah, the reason they said to us that parish councillors were eligible is because we're elected members of the community and therefore are considered to be, not to, you know. But I don't know whether we could nominate other people who might. They weren't
I don't see
taking.
why others shouldn't come and at least
Well, at
listen.
least, yeah, because they can, at least it's knowing what information they need in order to do things. So, you know, that would be helpful anyhow. So, yeah, I would have thought it would be great.
I mean, I would be certainly going to.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm happy to come again.
But just the extra 15 minutes, you know, being interesting and,
Well, then, yeah, before we invite him down, we find out whether any other members of the public are eligible,
yeah.
or another committee, like Mike said, which is on the short committee.
He is, yes.
Whether they're, you know, at the same sort of standing.
I'm sure that he'd be happy for that. He just really wants to build, you know, this sort of dog mess problem, solving the dog mess problem. But I will check. That's why I said earlier, do you want me to invite him for the December meeting, or do you want to go for the child protection in December? If we can get him, of course.
So I think for the child protection one, we need to ask. Probably would be both, but
Well, Mike the dog man is okay to come to the meeting here and in Bobwith in December.
right.
Because I checked that as a matter of.
How does everyone feel then? Do we tackle the dog mess in December and the child protection one in January? And that gives the child protection time to plan.
Seems as if, Steve says that we don't mind them come, then it makes sense to have him first, you know.
As I said, it does give the other fellow a chance to plan his schedule and perhaps not make it.
I'll ask if the public can come as well, because we could, if he's happy with that, we could ask the general public as well by the newsletter.
I would have thought that it's essential that bodies like the football could go. I mean, it's very important, isn't it?
Definitely,
Yeah.
it's really struggling with it.
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll move on to planning applications.
First one was the outline planning for two for Mr. and Mrs. Laverack. The plans for both of the Laverack applications are the same. If you looked at them, one shows the two and one shows the one on all sides.
So we're dealing with the two detached dwellings with garages following demolition of existing redundant farm buildings. Anyone have any concerns?
Yeah, well, the farm buildings are getting in bad repair, haven't they? On the roadside, I think.
And also the one on the
I
roadside.
mean, that's for quite a while.
What sort of a state of the materials that those buildings are made out of? Can they reuse those bricks or not? Is that totally out of question? Because obviously we've asked several people in the village to try and reuse as much as possible on other occasions to try and keep the character of the village.
I don't think there'll be enough bricks to cover two detached dwellings, two detached dwellings.
That's one of the three, though.
Well, three, yes, but
So you.
we're dealing with the two sides, they're pretty certain, two large buildings just
And I think it's a good point that when the planners are looking at this, we remember to try and keep as much character in the buildings as possible. I would like to see that in our recommendation.
But it doesn't say here that there are going to be buildings are going to be made into houses, does it? It says they're going to be demolished and for new building.
Yes, now Ian was asking whether the bricks could be used.
Yes, yes.
Because we did make that about the one at Percy Farm, didn't we? We said,
And the one behind the shop as well.
So can we make that recommendation?
Yes, done that. Thank you.
Character we want. So, no other issues with this?
Yes.
So that's a recommend or a no comment?
Recommend that.
Recommend. And then that's the other one.
And then the individual one underneath the single. Same comment?
Yeah.
No. And that's it. Recommend.
Okay. And that's the other one.
This directions single-storey extension to the front and two-storey extension to the side following demolition of existing garage at 8 Hawthorne Drive.
The only concern I've got is the pitch of the roof, because I know when I got planning permission for my house, I wasn't allowed to have it face to face with the house because of the pitch of the roof. And because it's a similar build to my house, I would think that the possibly would need to have it on window rather than it being flat level because of fire.
Right.
But that's because historically the rules changed before my extension done, and I wasn't allowed to have that design of the roof. I don't know whether laws have changed again, but
That's all the time.
The experts just said they change every month. Well, I'm sure that if it does, well, not pick it up, but the experts down there will pick that one up. But have we any objections to it? No, we're okay with that.
Recommend approval.
Recommend?
Yeah. Okay. And the other one was this publicity on the application for certificate of lawful development. This was Mr. Baker. The parish council made no comments on it when it came in last time, and it was rejected by Beverley, and they've resubmitted. And they're basically only asking for comments like they did last time. And your comments were that you're quite happy that they've been there for the requisite time.
Just while we're on that one, everybody, Miss Raper, the gentleman's daughter, has asked me if in my capacity as parish councillor can put in that we've known it's lived there since 2000. I was just wondering if everyone's okay with that.
Well, we sort of said that last time. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't see.
No.
So Ian's going to write as a parish councillor supporting this, and I'll write saying that the parish council have no more comments than last time. Okay.
Planning decisions.
There's one on the agenda, that's Mr. Riley, and there's two coming since.
The erection of brick pillars and roadside gates and alterations to existing access at Sweetwood Lodge, Houghton Road. The result of grant plan permission subject to the following conditions.
And those two are just coming.
Also for the press, the erection of a single-storey extension to the side and conversion of garage to living accommodation at 24 Back Lane. Granted, and again with one or two conditions. And the erection of a boundary wall including timber access gates to replace existing hedge at Canterbury House on Solly Road. Again, permission subject to 3 or 4 conditions.
Okay. And I copied everybody with a letter from Peter Robinson about planning issues. Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah. That came through. He'd had lots of requests for lots of things to check, so that was that. And then did you want to cover this letter at that point?
Yeah, I can. You will recall that last meeting we had 2 confidential letters read out concerning the rail trail and warehouse van. The clerk has since received an email saying that the writer was disappointed by the response of the parish council to the letters and thinks we should have done more. Following that, Alan Williamson has responded to those complaints by letter and made complaints himself about potential business run by Councillor Hawcroft. At this point, I think we must be a little bit careful that meetings aren't a letter. We've got to be a little bit careful about that. So, I would like to suggest to councillors that we read Alan Williamson's letter and then discuss. And then perhaps discuss if we take any further action on the email that followed the first 2 letters, rather than go through the reading again. So the clerk has
I've copied them there.
1,000
If you want to
copies.
use them, that's up to you.
If you would please, like to go through that.
Not looking for a very good video recording.
No, I hope you save your battery. Everyone finished? Alan has asked for this to be read out, but I think it's more important that you read it, because I think you take more in and understand it better than just listening to someone read it. As I said earlier, I don't want meetings to be letter after letter. I would much rather people spoke. So I would ask for comments about Alan's letter, and then comments about the email, and whether you think we should take further action. And I'm not sure what we can do. We send regular emails to each writing about the matter. I'm really not sure that we're not just wasting the facts' time. So, any comments, please?
Well, Mr. Chairman, having read these letters and been on the council since a lot more of the been for a long time, and this, I don't see that the parish council can do much about it, because, as we know, it's the differences between relatives. And how can we sort of, sort that sort of thing out? That's what over the years, that's what we've been asked to do, more or less. And I don't think we can be expected to sort of read this out between them.
Can I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly.
This is the first parish council not discussed the private business of an individual parish council. So we can't discuss this matter.
No, we have.
I don't think we can. Because any allegations or complaints made against the parish council about his personal matters or his business cannot be discussed in the parish council. It has to go to Beverley and be dealt with by the Matthew Booker's office in Beverley. We've had this before. So if we discuss this matter tonight, I will have to take this to the office in Beverley tomorrow. This document shouldn't be circulated, or shouldn't be read by the parish councils. It's the first attack against me. There's no business in this room.
I really don't know. The original emails that came in were talking about Williamson's business. That was checked by the parish council, and the East Riding are doing as much as they can on that. That came back, and then Alec Wild said that's basically that's not enough. The parish council not taking its significance. And Alan Williamson obviously has knowledge of all of that and has responded. And there's nothing I can do with Clark. I'm put in a situation where I'm talking to people and listening to people, and I don't really know what to say or do. And I shouldn't be in that position as your clerk. And perhaps you as a parish council shouldn't, because a lot of what is said from both sides are really not the parish council's business, other than writing to Beverley and saying, this is the position, can you check it out? And they write back and say, we've checked it out, and I as clerk can do nothing more than that.
Right. So at this point then, we will stop the discussion. I haven't been council long enough to know all the ins and outs. So we'll stop this hearing now. Sorry. And we'll move on. To accounts.
Yeah, the accounts for approval are as per the agenda. Peter Wiles is actually £359.20, which is extra £9-ish, and that's because his salary or his wage has gone up to match the new living wage, as I emailed everybody. Steve Deer, Clark, Gordon Hallcroft, and the Xerox lease, that's a forward lease to next January. And then there are 3 more to be added. There's the doggy bags and dispenser, JRB Enterprises, £562.80. There's a cheque to Anne Dowson, which is for the Santa suit, and sorry. It's a Santa suit, purchase of flowers for Dorian Engle's funeral, and prizes for the Christmas event, which was £38. So the total of that is £251.98, and that will obviously be on your minutes. And there's a cheque to Peter Hastings for reimbursement, and this is for Christmas lights from Macro, a generator and pump as was agreed, petrol, a socket, cable ties, and an electrical item not highlighted, and that's £496.49p. So those are the cheques for pretty much your copy of what we gave you.
You won't agree with the electrical item. The electrical item is a plug and 3-pin socket that fits into the existing female socket down on the green there for the lights. We need the information there. Anything else?
Those are the cheques to be approved, please.
Yeah. Everyone happy with? Sorry?
Just check, you mentioned that Peter Wiles' cheque has gone up because of the living wage. Has Steve Deer's as well?
No, because you as a council pay Steve Deer the minimum wage, and you pay Peter Wiles because he does a lot more sort of complicated
But
things.
the minimum wage has gone up as well?
Oh yes, that went
That
up
has been taken
last month, because that was from October the 1st.
Oh, right, sorry.
Yeah.
So, everyone okay with paying these checks out? Yeah.
And could I please, the Public Works Loan Board have asked if we could change payment from cheque to direct debit. Apparently everybody that pays them, apart from a handful, pay by direct debit, and it's much more convenient and cost effective for them. And there's certainly a form, and obviously the direct debit guarantees are included, all the safeguards and so forth. And obviously if you were to approve it, the direct debit mandate has to be double signed, like it is at the moment, like cheques are at the moment, so that would make it legal. And they're asking if they could do that.
Ken, has anyone any great problems with that? It makes things simple now.
Yeah. Okay. I'll sort that out. Thank you.
Precept. Or 1516.
Like we just briefly run
Yes,
this
please.
conversation. The 2013-14 is actual, which you've had before. The 2014-15, that's the forecast for the year end. And obviously based on the half year that I reported a couple of months ago. The village hall chair information is all there in terms of the money that came in and has gone out. The litter bin and doggy bags has come in and gone out with that grant. The election cost forecast of 2,600, we've not had the bills yet, but they obviously will come. And the heritage payment of 8,490 is basically catching up with the grants that have been coming previously, so that sort of sorts that out. And the 2015-16, basically the starred items are items where you need to make decisions on what to do with those. The ones that are not starred, like the insurance, is a given, and you don't really have to make a decision. You might decide to change insurance companies, but that cost still has to be borne. go through issues.
If anyone has any other concerns, please speak up.
Yeah, just obviously then on 2013, 2014, we had a bank balance 14,800.
Yeah.
Was that because we had finished paying some of the heritage off?
Yeah, and in the year that we're currently in, the forecast is that we'll spend 8,500 near enough, which obviously is, in one fell swoop, is the difference, yeah. It's coming in one year and expenditure in the next, so so it catches it up, sort of thing. That's why, as I haven't put any of the current grants that we've applied for in, because they, in effect, are budget neutral. If we get a grant for the World War I Memorial, then it'll come in and it'll go out, and there won't be much of a difference, sort of thing. The only difference is VAT. That's something that does impact, that you need to keep a bit of a balance, because you have to pay the VAT during the year and you can't claim it back until the end of the year, so there's like a time lag on that.
Can you do a claim back yearly?
I can claim it back more often if it's substantial, but it has to be substantial. I forget the figure.
Do you foresee that there's going to be much of a surplus at the end of the financial year?
At the end of this financial year that we're in now, if my forecast, or the forecast, is right, then there'll be a balance of about £8,000, and that'll be maintained 12 months further forward. It all depends, obviously, on decisions that you make for
Between
the
now and then? Between now and then?
Yeah. I mean, what you did last year with grants, as an example, is basically you said to people, we're not giving grants, we'll try and help you. And then when the grant money came in, where we weren't able to help, you then made decisions and gave grants out to bodies. And I put on the 2015-16 preset plan an allowance, a grant reserve of £1,500, which that covers what you paid last year to the Thursday Club, Homegrown, History Society and the Youth Club, should we not be able to help them with grants from external sources.
Oh, we put the precepts up last year, didn't we?
No. But yes, sorry, yes you did, from 29, apologies, yes you did. Yeah, 29 to 31.
Can I just check that we've got enough in the budget for the clerk's salary? Because year to date it's already higher than is it? And
Sorry, say it again.
the clerk's salary,
Yeah.
actual, is currently 12.3, and the forecast is only 10.6.
Yeah, the 12.3 was because of the way that the clerk was paid. It changed from being quarterly to monthly because of the way that the HMRC wanted it done. So there was an extra quarter in there, effectively.
That's fine. I just wanted to check because we didn't want to. Right, that's fine. Have a shortfall for that. Well, because that's a predictable cost, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just miss a couple of meetings if you don't get paid. Just miss a couple of meetings if you don't get paid.
Yeah. It can be done.
Any other questions?
I put an allowance in, I don't know whether Gordon sees it as right, for the heritage of £1,000 for expenditure over next year, and 250 for environment and 1,800 for in bloom, and they seem to be the sort of figures that have happened before. And
So the environment, the heritage thing, we're not fully spent up on
no,
it.
there's still a few hundred left in there.
Yeah.
I've got that, which I can tell you in a little while when we come to it.
I suppose the only thing that we haven't maybe what we factored in for the extra labour that we're going to put into the regional playground.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That shouldn't be.
What did we sort of decide? We thought maybe we didn't get an hour. It wasn't mega, was it?
It would not be, because they'll be looking at it once a week, one of them, just to tick a box type of thing and make sure things. If there's something major goes wrong, then obviously that's a different kettle of fish.
Do you say we haven't paid for the election cost yet?
The 2,600, the two bills haven't yet come in. No. They tend to lag quite a bit behind. And of course next year you've got the full election when you all stand down next May and are re-elected, and the cost last year was near enough 2,800, 4 years ago, sorry. So I'll put that in as a forecast for next time.
Okay.
You can't propose it, keep the 377.
Yeah. All those in favour of keeping the preset the same?
Okay.
Anyone against?
And in terms of grants, if I write to people saying that at some point we'll make a decision, but in the meantime we'll try and get them money. I mean, the one thing that stands out, I forgot to mention, sorry, was the Christian Fellowship. Last year they asked for £1,000, you gave them 500, and this year they've asked for £1,000 again. And Chris Lemming asked me what to do, and I said, well, put in for 1,000, and if they say no, you've lost nothing.
Well, also got to bear in mind that this money was on about before in this building.
That could come in, yeah. It could mop up some of the grants. Yeah.
Right.
May I be excused now, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, certainly. Yeah. You got a copy, have you?
Could I just mention, sorry, the Soccer Club 5-year plan, which I put as a copy because I thought that was really interesting. The soccer club know where they're going, and the number of young kids teams is growing each year. And it was upsetting when they said this Awards for All grant was not back. But I've also talking to Paul Barney. I don't know whether anything will come of it. This is the guy that's been looking at the village hall to see whether he can look at their needs for the 5-year plan as an overall thing. And I don't know whether it's going to be possible, but explore all avenues and so on. Okay, sorry.
Okay. Village hall for disabled grant.
That application is in, that amount is in the preset figure as an application for £1,200, but again we might be able to find that money in some other shape.
The newsletter copy,
Yeah, that's just an update on figures, and it looks pretty healthy at the moment. Long may it last.
Heritage project.
Down to Gordon, I sent out today those minutes that you sent me, as you might have noticed. I don't know if people have had a chance to read them.
Yeah, well, I think the minutes further self-explanatory, showing the direction we're going. We have meetings with people from Market Week, people from Newport, try and get some, well, we're backing them and they're backing us on Market Week in our corridor, which we believe is a fantastic asset, which is been not exploited at all. So it's an area for us to focus. But the minutes say exactly what we're doing. We're actually putting together recommendations about how we can improve the path network in terms of being able to walk it without a map. And the idea is that we would improve signage and deliver advice notes on particular posts. So this is the area we're working on. The other bit, we're having a meeting next week about the panoramic boards on Churchill. Now, the man in the article that was sent round in the World's magazine, he was talking about Churchill, wasn't he? And everybody goes on Churchill. And this is another unexploited asset.
Yep.
So we'll get some bits and pieces, rough ideas how much it's going to cost, and some suggestions for the panoramic boards. And we're going to spread them for people to pass their comments on. It should be 2 boards, 3 boards, whatever it should be.
Yeah.
And if we require boards elsewhere. So it'd be nice if people could give that a thought. The suggestion would be that perhaps we could have a board near where the old railway line was. I don't know, but we want to throw that open. And that will be the basis of our grant application, because that's where the money will be spent. Is that okay? Did that explain where we are?
Yep.
Could I just say say something that Gordon's brought up before under this is the joint local access forum and the Verges. Helen Reynolds and Roz Stanley came to the Bugwith meeting to talk about Verges, and they basically were saying that Verges are sort of a safe refuge from traffic, and also could be improved to get from village to village, or from a village to a bus stop or another important amenity. And it was an interesting conversation, and they're very willing to back anything that the parish council wants. So should you wish them to come to a parish council meeting in the future, they'd be very happy to.
This is the thing I mentioned before, Steve, if you remember. So they suggested we could have gained access to Waste Pond from Stockhill via the Verge. It's just a suggestion. But the more realistic one is where you leave the Rugby Rail Trail, you turn right, cross over Shipton Lane, and then back towards the footpath that goes down the South Garden Road. Now there is quite a dangerous little spot, and we could make a verge path there for the 60 yards that it would take to go from where you cross the road to get to Garden footpath. And that is exactly what Steve's talking about. A place where people can walk safely off the road, but it would need a bit of attention in terms of getting it mown back right to the hedge line. So that's another area that we're looking at. We're having a comprehensive look at this thing. We've got a good little team. It's on here, the names of the people who are working on this. And if anyone wants to give us some help and advice, we would be very pleased to hear from you.
Right, don't all rush, overwhelm going Don't all rush forward and overwhelm you.
Yeah.
Right, conservation issue at Waste Pond.
Just very quickly, the guy from the conservation volunteers, I got an update from him. The management plan to improve the habitat without access for the public, sort of thing. He's still working on it, and he'll get back to us as soon as he's done that.
Well, what are we doing next?
I have nothing different to say. I didn't know if there was.
No, we're just waiting for the grant. It was suggested to me yesterday by Anne Dawson that perhaps the council should. I don't know about the remembrance. How remembrance goes with it. I've been tired in Market Week for the past 20 years. But she suggested it might be a good idea if the council put a wreath on the little memorial garden.
I've had some queries raised by people at the church on the hill. They feel that the memorial down on the corner of Manorfields is perhaps secularising the memorial, and that it's now away from the church and it's another thing, and they're worried that people won't be coming up to the church so much.
Certainly not going to do that, because the top of the memorial will say exactly what the memorials and the village gates say.
But people aren't going to be going to the church to see that. They're going to be going.
How many people do you think go to the church to see it now?
That I don't know.
Chairman, I'm not people raise the same.
The only reason we're doing this is access, not to secularise anything. Just access. People, most people I've spoken to have said, well, at least we'll be able to see it and get to it. I know. I spoke to two people that were against it, but against that.
But perhaps we could, I don't know, talk. I know there's rumblings at church, and perhaps we could sort of reach out to them and sort of explain our theories and thoughts, and because what we don't want is them getting all unhappy with us. I mean, because I don't get the impression that anybody's doing this to upset anybody.
But the thing is, it won't alter what already goes on at church.
Yeah, but I think that the rumblings could probably do with being addressed before they become more than rumblings, if that's all right.
I will work with you. Next article is Village in Blue. I've made a little note, consciously not filled we have some grub, not leather jacket, whatever, chafer grubs, an infestation of chafer grubs on the green, the Butcher's Green, Rockingham Green, on Old Road. Terrible, they chewed half the plants that we put in there. So we're not planting that bed over winter this year. And then come the spring, we're going to purchase something called nematodes that will destroy these chafer grubs. And just to come across the nematodes, minuscule creatures, nothing to burrow into them and destroy them. But
Not really. I mean, there's a big problem with village.
there is.
Which is absolutely.
But we're taking advice, so I'm just holding back because it's £70. It's only £70 to join the in-loan thing. But I think again we'll benefit from another season of learning.
What are they doing about the football pitch then, Mike Leddy?
Oh, we're supposed to be having it sprayed, but obviously we can't spray it during the season.
No.
We need to leave it for
It's the wrong time
4
of year.
weeks. Yes, no,
To spray it.
whenever we spray it.
It's got to be when the ground warms up and
4
it
weeks.
is above 12 degrees, I think. The soil has got to be above 12 degrees to spray.
Yeah.
We've asked all the local garden centres for advice on this.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. We are lifting plants at the moment, and we're trying to save as many of the geraniums as possible. We're potting them and hoping to keep them frost-free. All the plants for next year have been ordered. We now have the generator and pump, so watering should be easy for the baskets next year. We are not planning to put any of the baskets or tubs up again over winter. It will be a big spring job. Greenside are going to purchase some hanging baskets with a small water reservoir at the bottom, and we're going to try and put some in the baskets that we've already got. They've got to purchase these new tubs and then loan them to us. So we'll put a request in before next spring to almost double the amount of hanging baskets and things we've got around the village. So the choose the land trust and ask for permission to use them. Apart from that, it's all go. And Friday afternoon, 2 till dark, anyone feels like lifting a field plants, meet us at end of Ernest Road there. You will have noticed one bed's already been. So yes, so if anybody's available for an hour, you will be.
Entrance in the chapel field.
Chapel Fields, yes. There's the 3 beds at Chapel Fields and 2 still at St. Mary. Thanks. That's the include. So we move on to reports.
I'll obviously just reiterate President and blame about the dog in this down the stick here. And also, same again, the gentleman who complained about the wanting the parking sign, putting it down the side of the Chinese.
I've asked that, not had a reply yet.
Okay.
I think I hope I copied you on the response. I'll chase it again.
That's it.
Right?
I had complaints about street lights flickering down.
Very good.
Lane. Yeah.
Very good. I was going to bring that up. You get within 20 yards of the one St. Blaine corner and it goes out instantly. And it's well, which direction you go from. It's sensitive to that one. But I think there's another one, 2 down, that does the same. And I only got to start coming out tonight. I'll get the numbers and pass them on. Ron? I'm here.
On street lights, the one down Smithy Clear is on down there.
Do you know that can you send me an
There's
email
no
with the number on
There's
it?
no number.
Oh right. So it's actually
It's on the Smithy.
is it on Hawthorne Drive or
Yeah.
yeah?
It's on next to the field behind here. But it is on permanently, day and night.
Ian?
No, nothing really.
Dennis?
The road up to the church is a council road, and there's totally potholes.
Yeah. I have reported that. I'll report it again.
That's all. Okay.
I was contacted by the police because there'd been an incident in the village and they were hoping to use the parish council CCTV camera. I met the lady from the police yesterday. So two things. Firstly, to report that I have handed over some footage and I have handed over or given a witness statement which simply says that I might be asked to appear in court, but only as holder of that information, not as a witness to the event, but as a witness to say that that CCTV footage was handed over. However, the police are going to be contacting Sharon. I don't know whether they already have, but they've got your number, having asked Sharon's permission, because they're looking for some information. It was the night of the 6th of November at 22:45, and apparently one of the men from the Indian takeaway was attacked with weapons. One bloke at least had, we could see from the footage, had a hole of some description. It was hard on the camera to make out what it was, but they're going to be asking, well, I know, I couldn't believe it. You know, you don't expect that, and she hadn't expected that. She was from Market Wheaton that the PCI spoke to. So they're going to be putting some requests out to go onto the village Facebook page to ask for if anybody saw anything at that point in time. Some people passing by. But it looked like quite a serious incident. Apparently the bloke isn't in hospital, he is home and okay, but, well, no, he's not okay, but he's not in a critical condition, is I suppose what I'm saying. But still, it's quite a scary thought that there were quite a gang of people attacking this one bloke. Yeah. The other thing is that because of the angle of where the camera is, there are people parking. I don't know the name of the little road that goes off the main street past sort of by the Chinese. That little one bit that goes down by the green. It's part of Old Road. That one. People are parking right on the corner, so just as they pull off the main road, they're parking by the Chinese. And the police lady did say she didn't think that was a particularly safe place to park, and it did look to be causing some issues. So whether she will take that forward, or whether we ought to think about maybe taking that forward and putting, I don't know whether we can request double yellows to be put there. I know people want to park for the Chinese, but there is more parking further on there. But they're parking literally on that junction. My understanding is the highway code says don't park within so far of the junction, and people aren't upholding that.
Sorry, just on that, Matt asked me a little while ago
I've got it down tonight as well.
to ask for double yellows in front of the Chinese, and I asked for that, and Matt just had the response, and they can't do it, they said, didn't they?
You said the reply got back was that it's a police issue.
But they couldn't do double yellow lines for whatever reason,
No.
they said.
I can't understand why though.
Well, no. And this was tying with what you're saying to him in the snippet, perhaps.
Yeah, I think all he was really looking for was, like the other side of the road, just the white line.
Yeah.
I know there's no parking, but the white line
follow
with
that
the
up.
two lines down either end.
The other thing is just for information, FISH, which is something to do with childcare in the East Riding, it's that organisation that sort of, they're sending out letters to people to say that there are places available for 2-year-olds now. It used to be 3-year-olds, there are now 15 hours available if you meet certain criteria. People are getting a bit suspicious because they think it's fake, because nobody gives them things for nothing, but it isn't in fact a fake, it is genuine. Places are now available for 2-year-olds as long as you are in receipt of certain benefits. So FISH are receiving letters. If anybody gets asked if they're genuine or not, then the chances are that they are. FISH genuinely are doing this, and that is correct.
Match?
Right, I've been asked for a pedestrian crossing again. I know Gordon brought it up, but I brought it up before that, and I'm bringing it up again.
I've had a response which I think I copied, didn't I?
Yeah.
It's on the book.
I just keep asking when we're going to get a pedestrian crossing, because the traffic that's coming through this village now is horrendous. I mean, and the other one was I put parking outside Blacksmiths. On Friday morning there was an accident. Somebody was getting out of the car and the lorry came by because he couldn't get to the other side of the road because the car was parked there, and it slammed the car door shut. If he'd had his legs out, he'd have lost them. but luckily he'd got the door open when the wind whipped it, and he didn't get his legs out, otherwise he'd have been in hospital now. So I still think something needs to be done about that.
I'll arrange a site visit for somebody to come and look at that.
Please.
Yeah.
This is Louise's, this, Meadowfield. The road is horrendous for potholes, it's terrible. At the bottom where you turn in circles and as you go into the entrance, it's very, very bad now. And the turning circle church view path, I think we've got a letter for that, haven't we?
Yeah.
It's Old Tatham, gardens the back of there. I went to look today and it's terribly that patch of ground. It needs, some of the trees have grown horrendously high, there's bushes everywhere. The actual path, which I believe is supposed to be a church path, the old church path, you can't see it for leaves and branches and twigs coming all over. And lots of people use that. Kids go to school to Main Road, they use that path. So it is quite bad, is what is classed as the turning circle church view. That's it.
I've got nothing on report, but I've got a request. Because certain people are on holiday in Australia, we might discuss transport on the 20-foot Christmas tree. Anyone a trailer and anything that would pull it? Any suggestions? Also, something to put it in place, something to lift it and drop it into the...
We'll help you with that.
Hang on,
Yeah, we do that for
I'll
you.
speak to you later. Okay, that's it, and just the other one. Those that haven't got back to me, please, with about Christmas party, let's see me before you disappear. Let me know. Right. Correspondence.
Yeah. The confidential issue that was mentioned earlier, backfield, you've had information on backfield, which I think basically kicks it into touch on my reading of it. Yeah. I've had a letter from somebody about fireworks, in that the firework night lasted about 2 weeks and very unfair on pet owners, and her particular dog was very upset about it and so on. And lots of people have mentioned that as well, that it's gone on too long and that it's not very considerate to pet owners. And I was asked if we could put something in Grapevine to that effect, just take care and maybe log it to put it in advance next time. Just be a bit considerate of pet owners. I don't know whether that's okay.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Is there any retailers in the village that are still selling them, or sell them at the moment? You used to.
McCall sold them this year.
Yeah, it's maybe they're saying to them, look,
Nothing is still selling them.
Well, they aren't doing us any favours really, continuing to...
But we don't there's any law against it, I think.
Well, this is otherwise it wouldn't be done, obviously.
Presume it might end up Poppins and don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, it's quite all of us now. But we can certainly put it in Grapevine and ask for people to be considerate.
Rail trail, I had a letter from Peter Coates on Selby Road about the rail trail and damage to a gate, and I had information back from Leslie Whitehead of Geese Riding saying to Peter, copy to me, and she thinks that the farmer working on the trail for her has platted it, and so it'll be sorted out. So just in case anybody asks you that. Churchview Turning Circle, as Madge just mentioned, this was actually raised a couple of meetings ago. Mr and Mrs Atkinson of 21 Old Tatham. The turning circle has a lot of weeds that nobody can get rid of, and is messy and so forth and so on. And she's very concerned and thinks the parish council should tidy the site up. And a couple of years ago, Peter Wiles did go down and do a bit of spraying, and obviously it wasn't successful because it's still as bad. And because as a one-off that was done, she was saying that it should be done all the time. And following a meeting where you all said it's not parish council land, it's private land, and the parish council shouldn't get involved, otherwise you'd have to get involved everywhere in the village. I wrote to that effect, and then this letter is actually to Pete, not to me, and it's quite a long letter urging the parish council to establish the ownership, which I've tried and failed, and hold the owners to account for clearing it, maintain it, clear the turning circle, establish an attractive flower bed, investigate about wild rabbits.
Which area are we on, Mr. Chairman? On the hill?
No,
Church View. And they're saying that they want the same attention as is given elsewhere in the village, and that comment is made because they've read about the thoughts about doing something on backfield. I don't know what else you'd like me to do, if anything.
It's not a very large area, but there's a tree that has that many trunks and branches coming off it, which seems to overshadow it. Certain residents have put a hedge round and they keep that trimmed, but it's the piece in the middle which backs up to gardens on Old Tatham, but it's also in the church view bit, and it's parallel with the footpath that goes between the houses and onto New Road. But it is a real mess.
It doesn't run all the way right through there, does it? To that new road.
No,
Is that
No,
like dike comes in there?
yeah, the new road's sort of like that, when you get to the
Yeah.
top of the footpath, and then there's this shape like that, where it is, and there's a snicket through onto Old Tatham. But so the trees actually are terrible, and the weeds and rubbish, it does look a right mess.
Call it a turning circle down the bottom of the church. It's not, it's just a dead
It
end.
cannot be used as a turning
No.
You couldn't use it to turn this
But you can't, anyhow, it's not landing.
No, that's
And
what I'm saying.
you can't anyway because the people park there.
You could, if they're, even if the tarmac, you couldn't have turned, it's still
Well, I
turning.
thought they had that road all tarmac.
It's not adopted. No, the footpaths.
There's no street lights or anything down there.
We
Nothing.
didn't have that bit of road, didn't have it tarmac through.
The path is sort of tarmac, but it's broken up. Yeah.
The residents paid for so much of it to be done, for salvages.
However, this could be the thin end of a wedge.
I'm going to say, I think.
So for the residents to get together and
Yeah.
But they're saying because we were, we did it once, they think we should be now obliged to do it.
Maybe direct them to the land registry and say, try that, they might be able to put you in touch with who owns it.
well, I think you'd get people on Old League running straight across to you. Old tree problems on Old League, as in the past.
But the one with the beds. Right. Yeah, I think it could be the thin end of a wedge, but how you all feel.
Let's see what's required is track it. Other than that, it is their responsibility, isn't it? And they have to deal with that.
Okay.
Right, yes, we'll move on.
Remove a telephone box back lane. This is from the East Riding, and it's basically saying BT are removing, or want to remove, 43 payphones in the East Riding, which have a low usage, and back lane is one of them, and that has a usage of 1 in the last 12 months, it quotes here. And the East Riding is saying there are 3 options: agree to have it removed, agree that the actual phone can be removed but adopt the box for £1 to retain it, or object to the loss. But if you do object to the loss, they will back it, but only if there's a very good case. And once a year is, they're saying is not a good case type of thing.
Well, we want a telephone box, don't we?
We've got a telephone box for £1. I bought a picture after we got the email about this, I got the knowledge of this, and I think we need to Google and find out how easy it is to dismantle a telephone box and get it
Yeah,
out
well,
of concrete.
If they're going to remove it, let them remove it, tell them what to do, we'll buy it.
I'm not sure they do that, but
It might be worth asking them, mightn't it?
it might be.
They don't. I can ask again, but no, they don't. You have the choice of saying no, and because when they take it away, they'll break it because they don't take care.
Because I think those boxes, if you wanted to buy one, they'd be expensive.
They're
wouldn't they?
surprisingly expensive.
People sell them in the shower.
I think we should get them to take the phone out. Let's have it.
Yeah.
I still think the original plan of putting it on the green
It would certainly, yes. I mean, if we could give Peter a little bit of time with it, strip it down, repaint it, sort the grass out and all of that, it could be a real asset on the road.
It would just make the green, wouldn't it?
Well, I think for a pound, there's nothing lost ever. If it breaks it, we will.
Now, would somebody like to suggest that we spend £1 on a new, on an old telephone box? Right, go on. Seconded. Right, go. All in favour?
Might even sponsor it, mate.
There is a big risk of when you take these things out that they will break.
Yeah,
and
well,
this is BT telling me.
Yeah, we've talked about
But if it happens,
and he's confident it can make it good.
Right, okay. The next thing was this East Yorkshire local councils. A couple of people said yes, please, can I have that on the agenda? And this is something that came through from I think the Cottingham Town Clerk. They're forming a group, or have formed a group of East Yorkshire local councils, which enables parish council to meet, share best practice, have relevant speakers, and work together for the benefit of everybody. And would this parish council like to join or like to express an interest?
To express an interest. It's always good to find out how people do things, and if it's better way than ours.
We're a member of a similar thing with Village Hall, and we've had some really valuable advice from it. It's actually been a really worthwhile thing to be a part of, as experience in Village Hall.
So, do you wish to join this East Yorkshire local council and attend meetings and the like, or do you just want to express interest and keep us informed?
Well, I think it'd be good if one or two of us could get down to a meeting just to form an opinion of its value.
So if I say that you express an interest and let us know when the meetings are, and we'll try and attend. The post office is being moved to McColl's, as I think probably everybody knows, but that's come through to the parish council. As I said earlier, I got information about free training for safeguarding adults at risk of harm, raising awareness of. It's free, it's good practice, and it's key when raising the profile and awareness about adult abuse, etc., etc. So if anybody, this is the East Riding, anybody is interested or knows anybody, please let me know. I've got that. I've got East Riding Parish News, which I do email to you, but if anybody wants the paper copy, and Clerk and Council's Direct, which everyone will win it. There's information from the East Riding Lifeline telecare. This is the thing people wear around the neck or on the wrist. Vulnerable people, if they've got a problem, they press the button and they're contacted by phone. And if they don't answer, somebody goes to make sure they're okay. And they ask for it to be publicised, which I'll do by the grapevine, but they offered to come to a meeting should you wish.
Can we tie that in with the door locks and things in the same item?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Do you think there is for vulnerable people in an emergency plan? And it's something you're sort of supposed to think about, isn't it? There's a list of, it's in best practice to have a list of vulnerable people in the case of an emergency, that you have arrangements to go and help if there's a problem.
An excellent suggestion.
So I'll put in grapevine, and if people would like to contact me to say that if there's an emergency or problems, could somebody come and check on me? That sort of thing. Yeah. Okay. Carbon capture, I've got some more information on this pipeline that seems to be going on forever. If anybody's got interest in that, let me know. And I did ask, again with Pete, when we went to Langlands, to see whether the current 18 bus, which used to divert to Langlands once a day, could happen again, and the answer is no. So that was that. Plus, Chairman's Awards, if anybody's got anybody they want to nominate for an East Riding Chairman Award, I've got that information. It's on the website should you wish it. East Riding Council want to know about your feelings about gypsy and traveller encampments. Do you want one in your parish? Etc. I would imagine common sense says that you would support them to get rid of them type of thing. So I fill that in. And finally, an email from Christine Barron, who must live at Loch Lane. Could you please bring the condition of Loch Lane up at next parish council meeting? We expect seasonal agricultural traffic, but this year, because of storage facilities being offered to Hunter Pack, we're experiencing excessive use by lorries of even larger tonnage, and the condition of Loch Lane, being a single track lane, is deteriorating very fast. The speed is something of an issue. This road is used by all of our village, and indeed has been highlighted before, especially the junction with Skiff Lane. As I am unsure to the legality of wagons used, obviously I need to look into this further, but in the meantime, could you please bring this to the parish council's notice with immediate effect? I believe the wagons are accessing Highgate Farm. I spoke to Pete and Helen about this between meetings, and Helen knew somebody at Hunter Pack, and she's been down to speak to them and spoken to the manager, who in turn has spoken to the driver, saying please take responsibility and slow down. If wagons need to be down there for access, then any weight limit or whatever is null and void because they're allowed to go down there. And I don't know whether I will write to the East Riding following this letter saying that the road is in a state. Could they look at it? But I don't know whether you wanted any other comments.
Steve, Peter Robinson made a reference to that in his email to us.
Did he?
He did.
Oh, I missed that. One second.
You know, when he went down there, he took me everything.
That's not going to jump out at me, is it? Okay. No. Got anything on there that was in the news? Home Industrial Estate. There's Bercy Lane, Loch Lane. Oh, Highgate Farm, Loch Lane. Sorry, missed that. Apologies, Gordon. Sorry. New shed. A planning application has been requested, so presumably at that point then the parish council can comment on that and talk about traffic and exteriors and so on. Sorry.
Mrs. Brown wanted to know, she may want to know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll refer to Peter Robinson. Thank you. Okay, that's everything I've got, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Well, if there's nothing else, next meeting, the Osborne Parish Council will be held at 7:30 on the 17th of December. Thank you very much for your
But are we having
attention.
an earlier start than that?
Well, we've got to wait and see. Oh, the deadline set will open, won't it?
The dogman can come.
So we've got to make it 6:45.
6:45 for the dogman and 7:30 for the parish council. With it being December, we'll try and reduce items non-essential.
We'll make it a 10-minute meeting.
Gordon, I've got a check here for you for those, if I may. And Bethany, can I give you a bit of a toll check, please? And Peter, oh, I can't give you a check, sorry, so I need to get them to somewhere.
No, that's all right.
So I'll get that to you as soon as possible.